At this time, we will call our city council meeting to order, and this is Monday, July 6th, and we are meeting in council chambers. Leslie, would you please call roll?
Yes, ma'am. Councilman Slater?
Here.
Councilman Adair?
Here.
Councilman Torgerson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Now?
Here.
And Mayor Fitch?
Here.
Please stand for the invocation and pledge. Bless those present, O Lord, that the business conducted here this evening will be for the continued betterment of our city. And in keeping with thy commandments, we ask in God's name. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The statement I'm about to read applies to both the regular meeting and the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of Directors meeting. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, as extended by Executive Order 20-150, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing, as provided by Section 120.545B2 Florida statutes for members of the council appearing remotely and for public participation. While a quorum of council members is physically present for this meeting, along with the minimal number of key staff, we are following the governor's emergency orders and the city's emergency declarations. I'd now like to ask our city attorney to explain the procedures for the public comment and participation in this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. The following are the city's rules for utilizing communications media technology as provided by Section 120.545B2 Florida statutes, as adopted by the City Council on April 6, 2020. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube Live and on the city's Facebook page. And as the mayor noted, the council members and staff who are physically present are following all emergency declarations and orders. The requirement to wear a mask does not apply under exception 4H of the city's mask order because social distancing is being observed by all of those who are physically present and no members of the public are physically present. The agenda and backup material and the agenda packet are posted on the city's website as usual. As set forth in the notice for this meeting, also posted last week, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to review the agenda and submit their questions or comments on agenda items by email to the city clerk with their name and address and a reference to the agenda item on which they wish to comment. It was also explained in the notice that questions or comments on agenda items could also be mailed directly to the city clerk's attention at the City of Gulf Breeze, City Hall, 1070 Shoreline Drive, Gulf Breeze, Florida 32561. The city requested that all correspondence be received by 3 p.m. Central Standard Time today, July 6th. As we go through the agenda during this meeting, the mayor will ask for public comment on the agenda item as usual. And at that point in the meeting, the clerk will read the questions or comments submitted, and the mayor and council members will then respond as if the comments were being made in person. So anyone wanting to comment on an agenda item may do so, not only if you have sent your comments in prior to the meeting, as stated in the notice, you may also do so through the chat feature on YouTube Live by typing in your name, address, and your question or comment, which will then be read and responded to by the council. Alternatively, you may call in to the following toll-free number, 1-888-585-9008, call code 186319955. And if you'll hold, your call will be answered in turn. Anyone who would like to participate during the public forum at the end of the meeting should also do so through YouTube Live chat or by calling in to the same toll-free number. I'll repeat it again, 888-585-9008, call code 186-319955. And again, if you may hold, but your call will be answered in turn. The standard rules also apply for any comments on agenda items or during public forum. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and if it's on an agenda item, the comments must be applicable to the agenda topic being considered. Are there any questions from council?
No.
Ready to proceed? Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll call for the approval of the June 15th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Move for approval.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Did you get it, Leslie?
Councilman Torgerson, second.
Or to
Yeah,
Joe.
either one. All right, any discussion? Any comments or questions from the public?
None.
All right. All right, at this time, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, next we will call for the approval of the June 15th, 2020 paving workshop meetings. Leslie, do we have any comments or questions regarding the paving workshop?
No, we have not received anything.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second, and any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, and opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, now we'll move on to resolutions, and this is a call for our resolution number 36-2020, extending the amended resolution 35-2020, declaring a state of emergency to implement protective measures related to COVID-19 and face coverings. Samantha, would you update us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. On June 26th, due to the escalation of community spread COVID-19 cases, Mayor Cherry Pitch approved the resolution 34-2020 under the authority of Section 237 of the city's code, declaring a state of emergency to implement protective measures, namely masks, be worn in businesses, except for in circumstances which were identified by the CDC. This was the same day that Milton and the city of Pensacola likewise did the same because of the escalation and community spread in both Santa Rosa County and Escambia. Just a refresher, when the city council then met on June 29th to consider either ratifying or rescinding that resolution, the city council considered that from March until June, the city of Gulf Breeze, inside our city limits, had cases related to, that were related to travel or assisted living facilities, and a total from March to mid-June of 7. And again, there was no community spread in any of those instances for a total of 7. But by the time that you had met, you had 17 cases within 5 days from June 25th until your city council meeting. And so by July 1st, that number was total of 22 active cases. Since then, we have had cases clear. They have gone past the period of quarantine and are considered now healthy. And so as of today, July 6th, for the last week, you have an increase of 19 cases. So the last time you considered this resolution, in 5 days, you had 17 cases, all related to community spread. Tonight, given the report from Santa Rosa County Department of Health to our emergency services, we've had a total of 19, an increase in the last week. And so I just open it up for Mayor and Council. Staff are here to answer any questions that you have. You did provide me with some direction that our city staff and police officers make sure to communicate directly with businesses. That has occurred. We made sure that the businesses understood that the policy of the council was in the same spirit of a no shirt, no shoes, no service, and that it would be up to the businesses to enforce. Our grocery stores are reporting that they're pleased with compliance. Publix, for instance, has an announcement that they're running over their speaker We've had various businesses reach out to us just to make sure that they were clear on the enforcement and the message to put up indoors. But all in all, comparing the feedback we were getting at the beginning, which was about how to implement it, residents were asking questions and businesses, to today, that seems to really have resolved itself. And I think a lot of that is attributed to our local media, who's helping to get the word out as well. So again, happy to answer any questions.
All right. Leslie, do we have any comments or communication regarding this?
Yes, ma'am, I did receive a couple of emails. The first is from Mr. Art Parrish, 1405 Green Vista Lane in Gulf Breeze, 32563. His email states, "Thank you, Ms. Abel and Ms. Fitch, for your masking decision. My wife and I are in our 70s and will not enter a closed room, store, or restaurant where there are unmasked people. We have resolved to do any shopping that requires us to enter a building in your city limits because of your action. We live in Tiger Point and will happily drive into town to protect our health during this emergency period. I have asked our county commissioner to make it a countywide enforceable policy." And then it says just Mr. Art Parrish, and he is CC, the Bay Colony HOA president. And I believe all of you received the email today regarding the Don Rudolph, president of Ascension Sacred Heart Hospital, Mark Faulkner, president and CEO of Baptist Healthcare, and Gay Nord, CEO of West Florida Hospital. They sent in a letter, also it's kind of long, so, but endorsing the use of masks within inside businesses and other places. So.
Okay. I think they had done this with Pensacola when they implemented their mask, and so they sent us, it's probably a similar letter to us, and basically it strongly encourages wearing masks in public because of the spread being from asymptomatic people often, and then also just for the safety of those around us, and because it is increasing numbers. So we can put this letter out on the web, so anybody would like to can read it, but that is the summary, and they're very definitive about that would be their recommendation for the public everywhere. Okay, do we have a motion on this resolution?
Are there any time limits on the resolution that stands now?
As the resolution stands now, it sunsets today unless it is extended. And so one of the considerations that the council, may have is whether you want to extend it to a date and time certain, or just extend it and then take it up periodically again, on future agendas. It'd be a point of discussion.
Are we having a discussion now, or do we have to vote on it first?
Typically, you have a first and a second on
Yeah, okay.
any kind of motion. Yeah.
Okay,
Move to approve.
all right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion.
Well, I'm just curious, do we have any type of benchmark where we're gonna say, hey, it's not increasing, we're not doing this, we're gonna, this could trickle on forever. I mean, eventually, everybody, if it's a flu, everybody's gonna test somewhat positive, whether you're asymptomatic or not, it's just gonna happen. I mean, the death rate's not going up, the recovery rate is dropping, drastically. So I just don't, I want to see some type of benchmark where we go, hey, this is getting too long, and I just don't see that in sight. And we could keep kicking this can down the road, because we all have 40 different paper masks in our car, like we do reading glasses. So I'm just curious, are we going to set a benchmark on this, or are we just going to say, because from what I read, even if you are tested positive and you're in the hospice and you're dying anyway, they're gonna say you died of COVID, and whether or not you're asymptomatic, you're COVID, so to me, it's a never-ending process, a never-ending wheel that we're going to keep turning. So either we need to set some type of thing, say, hey, once we hit this point where it's not above 20 or not above 40 or whatever it is, that we're going to rescind this thing and mean, does anybody agree, disagree? What's your?
I think the purpose of this is to keep it tamped down, rather than to have it explode on us. And all the evidence that we have in front of us today strongly suggests or confirms that this virus is spread most rapidly in an airborne manner, and that the most effective way to deal with it today, because we don't have anything else today, is to do so through the shared use of masks. So it is highly inconvenient, it's highly uncomfortable. I haven't talked to a single soul that likes to wear the mask. Having said that, outside of that, people are somewhat divided in their opinion about whether we should continue. But my personal feeling is that I would rather endure a little pain right now to hopefully mitigate this for a handful for now, if not for a handful, for a whole lot. And if we can do it for a couple more weeks and reevaluate at the next meeting and give the mayor the authority to say during this time period between now and 2 weeks from now, and we decide that the masks are not effective and that there's nothing that's doing to help, that we don't even have to meet, that she can take it off and do it that way. But I read as of today that several drug companies are doing evaluations of vaccines and treatment for this, including Pfizer, who's going to do one in October. So to say that there's a chance that we can keep it tamped down between now and when there is something like that, I think is all in our best interest. And that's how we keep it.
So you see no benchmark where it has to be, if it's just one person, we should all keep wearing masks. Is that what you're saying?
I can say that.
But that's my point was, where are we going to set a mark? Where is that? You know what I mean? That's all I'm asking. I mean, is it one person, then we all have to wear a mask? Is it, till we get to nobody has it? I'm just asking, is there some type of thing that we go, you know what? That's fine.
Or are we looking at ourselves as an island in Gulf Breeze, or are we saying the state or the country? Because I think 44 out of 50 states are showing a rise in COVID. And the state of Florida had, what was it, 20,000 yesterday. 40-something% of those are in the Gold Coast counties of Monroe, or Dade, Palm Beach, and Broward. But there's nothing to say that it won't take off like that here. That's what we're trying to prevent. I would be open to a suggestion on that, but I don't have one in terms of what the numbers are.
Well, I can see both of your points, obviously, because they make good valid points on both sides of the aisle. Maybe Sam just gave us a synopsis of, in the past week from March to middle of June, it was only 7 cases. And then from the middle of June to last week, it was uptick 22. And then now it's down to 19 because some fall off. Maybe if we see it start to decrease, then we'd say that might be a time to pull it at that point. If we don't see it continue to do this, if it starts to go back down, and it seems like people have all of a sudden just kind of cut back a little bit. I don't see the business on the beach like we did 2 weeks ago. You can cross the toll bridge and not have it sitting along in the Gulf Breeze at all, like we did 3 weeks ago. It was like, wow, record numbers, and all of a sudden now it reverted the other direction. It's not going to be the Blue Angel show. I had a question though, if I could ask Sam, in regards to page 21 of, and I may be reading this incorrectly, but it's section 3 where it says mandatory requirements. On page 21, where it says an individual in a business must wear a face covering while in that business. And I know you just spoke of, we're trying to let each business adopt a policy like no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service policy, and let them handle it on their end. Is this still in our amended agreement, or is this, or not? Because this is kind of contradictory to that. Maybe it could say, let it be up to the business to require a mask or encourage individuals to wear masks following that business. So as opposed to having the
Yeah.
strength of it saying, well, it tells you here that you have to wear it, but then, you know, we put in a further recital, where each business is encouraged to post signage notifying individuals of requirements to wear face covering. So we're kind of saying, well, we're just encouraging them to put the sign, but maybe we should also include that in the requirements where it doesn't seem as mandatory. Not that, because there's a lot of people that's going to be for it and want to wear it, and there's going to be some that just do not.
Well, if you do that, you're certainly lessening the position that you're taking down. And so we've seen an escalation, you know, from your last meeting to this. And in your last meeting, you talked about telling the business that they're encouraged to put up a sign, but you wanted to give them something firm that they could stand on if they wanted to enforce it. And so this might be a weak illustration, but I'm going to use it anyway, and then Mary Jane can correct me. But to me, you know, it is kind of like jaywalking. It is illegal to walk outside of a crosswalk, but our police use their discretion in when to enforce it and when not to. If you look at the strict interpretation of the law, it's on the laws, it is unlawful to do so. So here, you're making it very clear that an individual in a business must wear a face mask, but the businesses in their discretion are deciding when to enforce it and when not to. I think that's the balance that the council discussed, you know, at length in the last meeting, and that's where you are. You're kind of taking the temperature of your community. Have you gone too far? Have you gone far enough? That's based on the feedback that you're hearing from your residents and businesses.
And I think, I have tried to get in like all the businesses, both Friday and Saturday or Sunday, and, you know, most of them were every day that was open, kind of, and just customer. And I've talked to the same person at probably 2 or 3 different times. And I know the way that they handle it is if somebody, and usually an assistant managers at the store, if somebody comes in and they're welcoming to Publix, and then if somebody doesn't have a mask on, they say, we would prefer that you wear a mask, or some diplomatic way of saying it, and we have one if you would like to take it and wear it, we're requiring this. And I think they use the word require. And he said that 99% of the people go, oh, okay, fine, and they take it and put it on. And he said, well, somebody says, no, I'm not going to wear one, they just step aside and they go in the store. And the same way with Walmart. Walmart even had a problem. It seemed like at least 75% of the people in there were wearing masks. And I asked them what they were doing to encourage it, if anything, and they're really not. I think people are just getting more in the habit, and the level of awareness is raised that they'll do it. But, so, and I guess that's what I'm thinking. I haven't, and we said we don't want this to be confrontational. This is not a big thing. And so my feel has been from a couple of the small business owners too, and then I was in Tuesday morning, they're just like being polite. They're asking people to do it, maybe or maybe not, and then they just let them in if they're not. And so it's just, they're keeping it simple.
Okay. And I would agree that maybe we ought to look at it on a weekly basis between the 2 week spread of our council meetings and everything. In the event you see something that would make you feel more comfortable with rescinding, we could do so before waiting 2 full weeks. Because things change pretty quickly,
Yeah.
one way or the other. And, you know, even if we didn't have this in place, there's probably going to be some businesses that's going to want to do it anyway.
I think,
Whether,
and I
people
think
who
particularly,
stand by it.
I think particularly the people working behind the counters, I've had several of them, and they're there, they see everybody who checks out, they have said thank you, they're glad there is a mask.
Yeah, I've gotten some correspondence in that regard too.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm sorry.
No, that's a lot.
I just feel like if we have a letter promoting this activity from the leaders of the 3 largest health organizations in the Panhandle, that we pay attention to that. It's not a matter of wanting to do a popularity contest over it. It's just a matter of saying, this is the situation, and how can we best deal with it.
Mary Jane?
I just wanted to make a couple of procedural points, and first, I think Samantha explained the resolution and its status. very well. It is a strong policy of the city, is one way to put it, that, you require masks to be worn in businesses by the public and customers going into those businesses, and any owners or employees who are in contact with and serving those customers. You could go, you could weaken it, lessen it by just saying, well, we encourage people to do it, and not making it an absolute policy resolution of the city. You could strengthen it by doing as Pensacola did and passing an ordinance that has specific penalties and procedures for enforcement that would, it would take it off of just the businesses to enforce. But again, as Smith said, you've kind of chosen a middle ground, which gives the businesses the opportunity to use this to enforce on their own. And again, they can, if they want to tell someone you can't come in, without your shoes, without your mask, we're not going to serve you. They do have the option of then contacting the police to assist them on that. But again, so it gives some range and some options. One thing though I wanted to point out in terms of if you want to set another, date for this to sunset, you would need to do so at a point, if you want to have an opportunity to reconsider it, you would have to do so in a council meeting. The mayor can, under our emergency declarations, under the emergency provisions in the code, she can implement additional emergency measures that then you consider at your next called meeting, whether it's special or regular. But she can't take action to rescind an emergency measure that the council has enacted. So if you do extend this tonight, you would either want to, and you do want to sunset time specific in there, you would either need to put that at your next regularly scheduled meeting on July 20th, or, if you want to consider it somewhere in between, you'd have to call a special meeting to do that. The mayor can't rescind what the council is doing in terms of implementing an emergency measure.
Todd, did you have something?
Well, I think I see where JV's coming from, and it's kind of like anything else. You need to know if you won or lost. Whenever it's over, it's like a ball game. At the end of the game, you've either won, lost, or going to overtime. This has the potential to go into overtime because I think we're being a little nebulous about what we're trying to get from this. And I don't have any magic answers as to what that would be. But I think in almost any case, we need to find something that's measurable and use that. If we can come up with the right kind of numbers and to use that to determine whether we rescind or, as JB says, kick it down the road again. But I think almost anything you're looking at, we need a sunset date and a measure as to whether it's positive or negative, and definitely show support for the doctors and the hospitals in this area. I think to make it work, we need to find some scale to use and reach a point, maybe a month from now, maybe 2 months from now, as to, is it working? If it's not, then we walk away from it. If it's, it needs to be tweaked, okay. It's one of those areas where I don't really, I'm saying all these things, but I can't come up with a concrete way of putting a measurement to it. Maybe somebody else could.
If we was to sunset it in a week from now and saw that in a week from now that it needed to extend, what would we have to do at that point? Have a special meeting?
You would have to have a special meeting again.
And if we,
If you extended, the other option would be to extend it for 2 weeks. Again, to rescind it before
still have to have a
that, you have
special
to have a
meeting.
special
so
meeting.
one way or the other, you have to.
If you did it our next regular meeting, we could rescind it or let it expire.
Exactly, you can do the same thing that
Just
you're
like
doing
this
tonight.
one.
I think it's been helpful to have a weekly trend. I do think that. I would rather have a longer period of days to look at to see what direction we're going than one where it's particularly high and that's really not indicative, or really low. I don't know, I'm open with this too. I'm fine if we just look at it the next meeting. If we want to come up with a standard that, you know, that we feel like would be, it just seems like there's so much that changes with it, but if we wanted to pick, what was the initial, Sam, the first month, 7?
Yes.
If we wanted to pick that number, we could pick a number, and then, you know, I just think we'll have to be open, you know, to taking a look at what's going on that we are not aware of, or another trend that might be coming. You know, I do think this one was probably increased by just the holidays, the graduations, you know, the everything else, the beach opening. But we don't know that. And, you know, certainly I would much rather our community be safer than not. And I'm with Todd, I don't like wearing my mask either, but I like to wear it for other people. So that's where we are.
Just a
Sure.
comment on that is that the numbers that we have reflect the citizens of Gulf Breeze that have contracted the virus. What we're talking about really are the businesses in Gulf Breeze that are filled up with people that aren't from here. So we can do whatever everybody wants to do in terms of creating a number, but that is not a perennial issue because of the vast number of people that aren't from here that enter our stores. That's, to me, a much bigger issue, is that we want to protect our citizens from them. And this gives us another opportunity to do that.
Well, I like the idea that you just mentioned, Mayor, in regards to maybe sunset it and then to the next council meeting, where we can take it up for debate again, and maybe put a number on it. If it reaches 7 or below, before, then we could rescind it, because that's what we want to apply. That quantifies it with some kind of a measure.
What do you
What do you
mean
think of
by
that?
sunset? Randy, when you say sunset?
Sunset this resolution until 2 more weeks again, and look at it again.
It would sunset then.
It would sunset it
Okay.
in 2
We're not
weeks,
saying
at our next
sunset.
council meeting on the 20th of July. Or unless the numbers are positive in our community here, go back to the 7 or below. They were prior to us enacting this from March to mid-June. We only had 7.
Right.
But we had the uptick from 7 to 22 in about a week or so. Now we're down to 19. If we get down below 70, then maybe we're on the right path. If we get there before the 2-week period. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I think also the part of the whole situation is we're testing 10 times as much as we were when we first started. But I think at the same time, I don't think Gulf Breeze hospitals are overwhelmed in their ICU rooms with COVID cases. And most of the kids that are being tested now, within 2 days, the person I knew, they said had smell or taste for 2 days. And then they were back feeling normal. Didn't have a fever, didn't have a temperature, didn't have a cough, didn't have anything. It was just, that was their only symptom. So they decided to go get tested, and they tested positive. You know, was it a good test? I don't know, but I'm just saying that was their only symptom of this thing. And I just think that it's not a walking dead virus. You know, it's not Ebola, it's not AIDS, it's not, you know, it's a mild virus at best, you know, in the big picture. And I just think that we're totally overreacting for a city of 53 or 55 or 5,800 people, wherever we're at, and the number of cases, the percentage is very low. And I understand what you're saying, Todd, about people coming in and out. But, you know, when we first tested, 2 of the people weren't even from here, they were from Canada. That were
That's right.
you know, they were just here visiting, you know, but yet we're being penalized to say, oh, we gotta make all our citizens wear masks because this. I just think that we're way overreacting to this. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I understand, but I just look at it differently, where I don't look at it as being penalized for trying to protect ourselves. That's all. It's just an action to prevent something. It's not a penalty.
And I mean, and to me, the difference is too, that it is so contagious. And right now, there's no vaccine for it. They don't, a doctor that I spoke to that works in that area at Sacred said, you know, with the flu, you kind of know what medicines to give or not give or whatever, because we've all had it for so long. But he said with this, it's just new and it's still basically pretty experimental, and it varies a lot from person to person who gets it. So I think I'm more, with Todd in terms of just that because of that and because it is so contagious, I just think I think we need to protect other people. And it may not be, I've heard the same thing, JB. I've heard a couple of people that just had very minor symptoms and felt fine, and other ones that had 2 weeks of being incredibly tired and fever. They weren't hospitalized, but they were quarantined. And I think the other part is that it spreads asymptomatically or pre-symptomatically, so somebody can be very innocent, and still spread it. So that's my 2 cents with it. So where Sam?
I wanted to speak to Councilman Schluter's, issue of benchmarks, which I also heard Mayor Pro Tem nail. We just tangentially look to see what others are doing, and so I would like more of an opportunity to research that further. The state of Texas has stated that any county that has 20 cases or less, that they would lessen the masks. And so that goes to your point of the fact that you have non-locals. So if that's kind of what we adopt regionally, but it will give me more of an opportunity to also talk with administrators in Escambia and Santa Rosa. And thus far, when we've asked them, everybody's still in that roller coaster of going up, up, and up. And so they haven't really considered what those benchmarks will look like. So maybe between now and your next meeting, I can bring you back some alternatives. If it's hospital capacity, or if it's a number that, relates to Santa Rosa or Escambia, I'll just bring you some alternatives and you can at least discuss them. And I'll try to do that certainly well in advance of your meeting.
Okay.
I think the benchmarking is good.
I do too, and I think that's it. It's like right now, none of us really have a number or a something to choose and recommend. So then, all right, so then do we have a motion to?
I'm so sorry. We did have a comment come in on,
Oh, okay.
our YouTube Live. It's from Mr. Terrence Granby at 355 Fairpoint. Mr. Granby says that wouldn't be the only symptom, that they are spreading it.
Okay. All right. All right, so then we would need a motion to keep the resolution. This is right here, to keep the resolution in place.
I think we already got a motion.
We have that. I think that if there was a motion to approve the resolution 36, 2020 as drafted, with a second in the discussion, if you want to have this extension expire as of midnight on July 20th, which will be the date of your next meeting, and then, you can decide what to do then, just as you're doing now, then we would need to have an amendment to the resolution. Motion to amend the resolution to have it sunset or expire at midnight on July 20th, 2020. And again, we don't have to state that in here, because then what we could do is bring back to you another resolution. We don't know what that will look like at this point, whether it would be another recommendation to extend again, or based on benchmarks, or whether it would be a motion or proposal resolution to rescind it at that point, or modify it, whatever. So again, an amendment, from what I hear, the discussion is that there seems to be a desire to consider an amendment to this, to have the mask order extended for another 2 weeks, but expire on July 20th at midnight. And then again, you'll take it up again at your meeting that night, and we can decide what to do from there on.
All right, does that sound, does anyone like to make that motion for that amendment to this?
Well, I'll
We have a motion, we just
I
have
think.
to-
Yeah, motion.
Yeah, I made the motion, so I'll amend the motion to say that we tack on there that it expires or sunsets on July 20th.
Okay,
And then we'll also evaluate methodologies for benchmarking.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Again, okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, and it passes 4-1. Okay, moving on, we are now going to meet the meeting to, meet as the Community Redevelopment Agency. And, at first we need to approve the minutes from our last CRA meeting, which was May 18th. Do we have any?
Move for approval.
Okay. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right, any council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, we have got the consent agenda items for the CRA, and that's authorization to bid school zone flashers and authorization to bid traffic signal generators. All right, does anyone have any questions about either of these items? Do we have a motion?
Move for approval of consent items. Offer them.
Very good.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
I have no name.
Okay, any, all right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, passes 5-0. All right, that is the end of our business for, nope, we've got a CRA action item, thank you. And I'll defer to Samantha and how about Craig for talking to us about the research.
Sure. The memo in front of y'all this evening is requesting authorization for staff to piggyback on the Santa Rosa County paving in order to catch our CRA paving up to date. We have pushed the paving for 2 years to prioritize other items in the CRA goals. And essentially this is going, catching us up to where we need to be today regarding the paving schedule. We had $259,000 in the budget based on previous prices we had received and kind of extrapolating that out per a cost per a mile. And you'll see that the total for the CRA paving is $70,852, so significantly under what we had budgeted and under what we have seen in the past. And that's capturing the economy of scale that the county has essentially with the amount of work they've done and the price they can get. The only caveat to this bid is there would be a contract price for increases in weight of asphalt. So essentially, if they said they wanted to use 100 tons of asphalt to do Nightingale and they used 110 tons, we would be billed for that additional 10 tons at the contract rate. But even we put in there a little bit of buffer for each one of these roads, so we don't anticipate that having to utilize that portion of the contract. Even if we did, we're still going to come in significantly under budget that will allow us to prioritize those savings to other projects.
And Craig, was that because we were able to go under with the other county on the pricing on that?
Correct. We
Helped so much?
piggyback on the Santa Rosa County's paving contract.
Okay. That's great. All right, any questions or comments about that? Hearing none, Leslie, do we have any public comment or questions?
No, ma'am, we cannot.
All right, motion,
Move for approval.
second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-1. Any new business for CRA? Okay. All right, public forum, do we have any public forum for CRA business?
No, ma'am.
All right, hearing none, we'll adjourn the CRA and reconvene as the city council. For city council, we are on item 6, which is consent agenda items. Are there any items that the council would like to remove from this consent agenda? The items are Shoreline Drive CNG station repairs, surplus police vehicle, and authorization to advertise for bid the header pipe repair for South Plant. All right, Leslie, do we have any public?
No, ma'am.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval, consent items after Bravo Charlie.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, next we're moving on to action items. And that, we have actually, so authorization to bid the multi-use pathway, wetland park, wetland trail, boardwalk, and shoreline drive road rehabilitation project. Is that Craig or Samantha?
I'm going to kick us off, Mayor and Council, and so I'm going to tell a little story. I'm going to take us back and bring us to present. And we like to do this because on large capital projects such as this, it can really seem like it took a very long time to get to where we are. And that's because a lot of capital planning has to take place before we can get to the moment that we are this evening, where staff is recommending that the project be bid. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a timeline. Patrick Ely, your consultant engineer with McKim & Creed, is on the phone. And I'm going to turn it over to Craig Chamberlain, your CRA coordinator, and he's going to talk with you about the design. So I'll try to keep my comments brief so that he can talk you through that, since you last reviewed that with Patrick Ely and the McKim & Creed team. So, and again, this is as much for the benefit of the council as it is for the public, but the Fairpoint to Shoreline Multi-Use Loop is a project within your 2008 comprehensive plan. It is the oldest capital project that the city has in its adopted plans that has not been implemented. In 2016, when FDOT purchased a portion of Wayside Park from the city at that same time was embarking on a 10-year capital improvement plan, which was the first citywide capital improvement plan that the mayor and council had ever considered. And so the council looked at the funding proposals for each one of the capital projects in your general fund and also in each of your enterprises. By enterprises, I mean those proprietary funds like your water and sewer fund and your stormwater fund. And in looking at all of that, the council said, you know, we really want to end strong with our Most Livable City Master Plan, because the mission of the Most Livable City Master Plan was to be the most livable city by 2020. And so in 2016, the mayor and council surveyed our residents and asked them to rank projects that the council had extracted from the plan. And that was done. And your residents, by polling over a series of months, ranked those projects that they most wanted to see. And then the council took those projects and took monies out of various funds to try to match them with those projects. And the staff, project by project, received directives: go search for grants, leverage multiple pots of funding. And I share all that with you to say that this project, your multi-use pathway, was a highly ranked project from what we call the Most Livable City projects. The reason for that is because it's a safety issue as much as it is an issue to improve and preserve the quality of life in the city of Gulf Breeze. So in 2016, we really gave it all we had. In addition to, in a parallel track, we began meaningfully developing funding plans for each one of your enterprises, which means that we did a thorough analysis of your stormwater fund to make sure that your stormwater master plan would be fully implemented. And that is why now you're seeing these transformative projects in the East Basin, and you're seeing us leverage restore dollars in the West Basin, the Central Basin, almost entirely complete. But all of that has a funding plan. Your paving plan, which you just reviewed at a workshop within the last month, that also has recurring revenue for those recurring costs to make sure that you are paving at least 3 miles a year with designated revenues, excuse me. And so the council have also been working very hard on your water and sewer plan. Tomorrow is the Board of County Commissioner meeting for Restore Funds, where the Restore Council just recommended approval of $6 million that will go towards the Tiger Point expansion. That will free up money that the mayor and council by resolution have stated they will use inside the city and match dollar for dollar for septic abatement. And so I share all that with you to say that our residents sometimes ask about our priorities. why are you moving forward with the multi-use path? My favorite project is stormwater, or my favorite project is septic elimination. All those projects are important. It's very critical that we continue to inform our residents and educate them about municipal finance, and that every enterprise fund has its own funding plan, and they can find all of that in our 10-year capital improvement plan, which is available on our website. So for any of those projects I just listed or more, if the council have identified it as a capital project, which means that it costs more than $25,000 and may take more than 1 year to fund, it is in your 10-year capital improvement plan, and you review that as part of your budget. The goal being to leverage every local dollar you can. And so when we can find grant dollars, we want to leverage it. As it relates to the multi-use pathway, we have been unsuccessful, and it is not for lack of trying. So the mayor and council adopted a resolution and asked for support in the Florida-Alabama Regional TPO. It was a victory that it was ranked the second highest project in the entire region between Florida, Alabama, TPO. And so we really thought that we were going to be funded. DOT did not pick it up on the other side. And so it's one thing for your TPO to rank it as second highest project. DOT was not feeling it. And so we went back, we spent a lot of effort in educating DOT on the safety issues of this project. The fact that at that time we had close to 130 accidents in 5 years. Now, of course, we've exceeded that. We moved forward with being a LAP certified community, which means that we would work with DOT. Basically, we would be that local land planning agency and help them with some of the project management if we could receive some of that funding. We didn't prevail. We went and asked our legislators for support. We received that support from Representative Alice Andrade and Senator Doug Broxson for $100,000 in design. We had certainly hoped for more, but Hurricane Michael happened. This last year, the pandemic happened. And so we have not seen the state appropriation that we had hoped to see. In the meantime, the council have received letters of support from the 2016 Most Livable City Plan Discussions to present, from your Parks Advisory Board, from your bicycle clubs, from those who live and walk along the sidewalk. The sidewalk is in need of repair. Shoreline and Fairpoint roadway is in need of repaving. And there is a safety need to separate the low-speed vehicles from the pedestrians and from the cars. And that's ultimately, that is the goal. It's a beautification project as much as it is a safety project. And so last July, the council awarded the RFQ to McKim & Creed, and you also reviewed a funding plan. And the council did something meaningful in your discussions. You looked at the monies that the city staff had identified since 2016 that would be available. These are reserve monies that were not already encumbered for some other purpose in any of those other funding buckets for projects. And the council identified $3 million in reserve funding from the Capital Trust Agency, which is a component unit of the city. And it is non-user fee and non-tax dollars, which you liked. And so Capital Trust Agency would bring at most $3 million to the table, and the city, through your other funding sources such as CRA and LOST, would have about 1.7 at very most to help with the paving and the rehab of the sidewalk. And so the council moved forward with that in mind, again, hoping that that would be, very worst case scenario. We don't want to spend all the money that we pull because we certainly have, other projects, but the council proceeded with that award of RFQ. And then in, in September 17th, at the 10% design milestone, there was a floor map workshop that was held where residents took off their shoes, they walked the project area, the mayor and council were there to hear concerns. With any kind of large transformative project, you have a lot of questions. How is this going to affect my property? And so at December 6th, for the 30% design mark, there was an awareness walk that was completed for those residents whose property may be impacted. We asked them what would make this more acceptable for you. If you have the multi-use path on your side of the street, is it a hedge? Is it more canopies of trees is it bollard lights, the acorn lights. And so we really negotiated and worked with each resident along the way so that it is something that will preserve or enhance their property values, and overall we want a very attractive project. Throughout the process of developing the plan, any resident that showed interest in the project or participated in meetings was added to an email listing. There was an interactive web page that was launched that the mayor and council reviewed, where you can click on the map and it will blow up the full plans. We continue to receive a lot of input from those satellite images. And so that brings us to where we are tonight with 100% design plans ready to be bid. Craig is going to talk to you a little bit about the timeline, but we're thinking, if we were to succeed in authorizing the project sometime in the next month, then you would probably be about 60 days out from seeing a recommendation, from us. So it could be maybe fall of next year before, you were awarding the bid. And so I don't want you to think tomorrow something is going to happen. There's still a lot of discussion yet to be had. But the recommendation tonight is for us to take that next step so that you can receive those bids and actually see what your construction costs may look like. And there are some alternatives as well that Craig is going to talk to you about so that you'll be able to kind of decide those things as you go. So, all right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Craig unless anybody has any questions to me about the timeline. I didn't start with Noah's Ark. It just seems like it goes back that far. So.
Same amount of time.
Right, same amount. Just saying, this has been a big haul. All right.
Thank you, Samantha. I think Samantha did a great job setting the table to show how much effort, the previous councils and previous staff and current council and current staff has put into this. And kind of tonight is the culmination of those efforts of, success in itself to complete this design and put this in front of y'all. Leslie, you might go ahead and getting the design up on the screen, and we can. What I had Leslie do is pull up the interactive web page that we've made available to our citizens. And what we'll do is we'll use this to kind of go through the pathway, start to finish. It shouldn't take long, and show you kind of where we put it, some design elements along the way, and what we've decided to include in this. Again, Samantha kind of walked you through the process that we use. McKim & Creed was selected amongst 6 design firms based on a few things. First being that they really had a commitment to public input. They helped us craft those ideas of the map workshop and the awareness walk and this interactive web page to really get the word out there and let people have an opportunity for input. And we have received a ton of input over the past year. We started by surveying both sides of the roads. We essentially had no predisposition on what this thing was going to look like and where it was going to go. We started from scratch to try to figure out the most efficient and best use for this. And so, as Samantha mentioned, the way we're going to bid this out is in phases, and each phase has some bid alternatives. And so when we do put something back in front of you, we'll be able to prioritize these projects and add and remove as y'all see fit. And so what you're looking at here is starting at the school, and are we at the 40? And so the yellow, and so the yellow is going to be the multi-use path. The green is going to be your zero skate gardens, and the green along the road there is going to be your proposed bike paths. And I'll talk a little bit about the bike paths. The bike paths were added as a citizen recommendation. We got a lot of input on the bike paths, and we incorporated them into the design, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. The bike paths have some positives and some negatives associated with them in addition to the cost. We haven't seen what it's going to cost yet, but we have some renderings here to show you the difference between the 2 designs, and that's one of the decisions we're going to be asking you to make.
Not tonight.
Not tonight, but when the design is completed and we prioritize the sections of this project. And so to start with, what you're looking at here is a crosswalk. There's 7 enhanced crosswalks along the routes. And that is going to be a raised speed table pedestrian crosswalk, so very similar to what we just built over on Daniel Drive. One of the bid alternatives is to beef up these crosswalks even more and do inset flashing beacons. And so the best example I can give of an inset flashing beacon is on your way to Pensacola Beach. They have a really nice inset flashing beacon crosswalk that really gets your attention when you're trying to cross the road. And that's one of the main concerns we've heard from citizens is crossing Bear Point and Shoreline and a safe way to cross Bear Point and Shoreline. So base bid is going to be a lot safer than where we are right now, and then you're going to have the opportunity, depending on cost, to upgrade that. And so the base bid of the project is going to be your 10-foot wide asphalt multi-use pathway, and we looked at multiple different materials, but ultimately we settled on asphalt for several reasons: the constructability, the maintenance, and the use of the asphalt. And so we're looking at a 10-foot wide asphalt multi-use pathway that will be striped down the middle in 2 5-foot sections, and that will go around the entire loop. And so what, Leslie, I'll have you start kind of walking us down the loop. And again, we're starting at the school and we're going towards City Hall. And what you're looking at there, yellow is going to be your proposed multi-use path, the blue is your proposed bike lanes, and the purple is your existing sidewalks. And so we had initially put the multi-use pathway on the north side of the road over here in front of City Hall, the community center, so on and so forth. And at our 60% mark, we reviewed it from a constructability standpoint, where we walked out and kind of talked about the challenges of getting asphalt trucks in here, getting grading trucks in here. How are we going to build this thing, and what kind of impact is it going to have on the current infrastructure that we've created there? And so one of the core areas there is Gilcrest Road, where we have a lot of memorial trees and also significant grading issues to get the pathway through the 400 block of Shoreline and Gilcrest Road and City Hall area. And so with the clear space on the other side of the road, and the minimal impact to any existing trees or features, we decided to shift the multi-use pathway to the south side of the road, and that's going to go all the way from the school down to Chesapeake. And so again, that allows us to have easier constructability, A. B, it ties Tall Pine and the Chesapeake Williamsburg neighborhood, gives them easy access to get to the parks, to get to the schools, without having to cross the road. So it kind of incorporates those two big neighborhoods and, again, utilizes that section of road that we have over there that's pretty much clear and easy ground. So at every existing intersection, you'll see the purple is the sidewalk, and then you'll see yellow where we kind of swing the sidewalk out. And so that's one of the safety improvements that Samantha mentioned earlier, and we're doing that at every intersection. And so we've heard over the years a lot of issues with the double stop. As people are coming out, they're having to stop back at the sidewalk, creep forward, stop at the road, and then, enter the Shoreline or Fair Point. And so what this will fix is this will be a single stop. And so swinging the sidewalk out towards the road and creating that unified crosswalk where the sidewalk and the multi-use pathway will cross the road at the same spot right on the edge of the road will create that, that scenario where you'll just have to do the single stop. This is our second crossing right here at City Hall. And so in each crossing, also we're doing some enhanced landscaping, what we call our zero-scape gardens. And that's to add the character to the multi-use pathway and the character to the neighborhood entrances, and it's, beautification. So we used our beautification fund for a portion of that design, and we have the funds available in the beautification fund to add that in. So every plant in those zero-scape gardens was selected off the Northwest Florida drought-tolerant plant list. And so the idea is these will be established through water truck, and then there will be no longer needing irrigation. So all these are native plants that have proven to be able to thrive in drought conditions. And so that's kind of the idea, is to have these native zero-scape gardens that require very little maintenance but provide seasonal color and character. And within a lot of those gardens, we'll also be putting a bench. And also you see where the yellow kind of rounds, that's a turnaround point. And so it allows a golf cart or a bicycle or a skateboard or something to stop and safely pass, another use coming the opposite direction. So every crosswalk and every crosswalk has that same kind of design. And so we'll kind of keep creeping our way towards the community center. You can see there that we have, the safety enhancements. So the sidewalk swinging up, we're still with our multi-use pathway on the south side of the road there. And so, again, Samantha mentions as part of this project, we're going to be really paying attention to our current infrastructure as opposed to adding this new infrastructure. So we have a budget in there to replace all our ADA issues with our current sidewalk, to do our sidewalk swing at most intersections up. And so really enhancing our current sidewalk pedestrian infrastructure as well as adding the multi-use pathways.
Can I ask you a quick question? What's
Yes.
the purple line closest to on the outside edge there?
That's gonna be your right of way line. That is your edge.
That's the property line.
The property, the city
City,
right of way
okay,
line,
thank you.
correct. Yes.
Sidewalk stays further back at this intersection.
Correct, so this is the one intersection that we're not doing it, and the reason is right there where your mouse is, there's some extreme grading issues and also some stormwater issues, so we would have to come pretty far back with that sidewalk. We would have to tear all those memorial crepe myrtles down. It essentially had a impact that we did not feel outweighed, you know.
Right.
We haven't had a major safety issue there, and talking with Ron, we thought that intersection could say the same. So that is the one intersection that we're not doing the safety enhancement, and it was just because of constructability. And so we could draw it on the paper there, but once you try to get a grader out there and pour sidewalk at the appropriate ADA grades, it's a very difficult task.
Is that the main entrance to the baseball softball field, or is that the one
That is the main
just
entrance.
football field?
That is the main entrance to the baseball
Okay.
softball fields.
Okay.
And so going down a little bit further, we're about to get to the community center, where we did a major crossing, and we also extended the sidewalk into the community center existing sidewalk. And so you can see there you have your public art that we're doing some landscaping around. You have your enhanced crosswalk and some landscaping around the crosswalk, and then your sidewalk swing there. And so this is one area. There's 5 areas that these zero-scape gardens, I've met with stakeholders and determined that we can tie into irrigation. And so everywhere that we have these zero-scape gardens where there's a city well available, we're going to go ahead and put irrigation onto it just to help these plants help them get established without water truck. And additionally, we met with the Methodist Church, Pete's Point, and the Baptist Church, and got permission from each one of them to tie into their irrigation systems as well for these zero-scape gardens. And so kind of keep going down as generally along the entire route at every one of these intersections that we're doing a sidewalk swing. We're also doing improvements to the curbing and grading of those sidewalks. So one really good example is right out here at the entrance to City Hall. You'll notice on your way home that the entrance is kind of getting a lot of potholes, a lot of dipping. There's not good curbing established. And so this will help those turning radiuses and help the entrances to those neighborhoods. They really get that kind of unified ribbon curving entryway to each neighborhood. And so that's also part of these improvements. Also along the way, when they first built Fairpoint and Shoreline, there was a significant swale network established, and over the years, those swales have been filled in. And so there was a lot of concern from residents that, adding all this new asphalt, what's going to happen to the stormwater? And so we meticulously paid attention to the impact we were having to stormwater, and we feel with this design that we're having very little impact to stormwater. But everywhere we could, we're reestablishing the swale. And so you can't see it on this Google Maps interface plan, but if you go to the civil engineering plans, which you can get to by clicking anywhere on this map, and it pulls up the corresponding civil plan, and it really shows the stormwater aspect of this and how we're doing, light swales and just reestablishing green space for the water to go to, where it's not going to be running off on people's property where it wasn't running off before. Okay, so this is out here at the entrance to Chesapeake, and this is where we go from the outside of the loop to the inside of the loop, and it's going to stay on the inside of the loop all the way to the Methodist Church at this point. And so when we first started looking, I think ideally we wanted to keep this thing on one side of the loop the entire way, but we got into constructability issues. And so we analyzed this with a common sense approach with constructability issues, but we also use a scientific approach where we apply a matrix to safety issues, to right-of-way obstructions, to grading issues, to access to existing households, to driveway crossings, and essentially came up with a scientific score on each section of this and the best location for it. And that's kind of out of all the iterations we have, the iteration you see today has the most effective use of the pathway with the highest chance of successful constructability without the contractor looking at us and saying, hey, you're going to have to do X, Y, or Z to make this work, which would in some cases involve cutting down a lot of trees and completely regrading our right of way. Okay, so as part of something that wasn't really considered initially, but as we dug into it, we really saw the need for it, is in order to get this multi-use pathway to have the appropriate ADA grading, so that's a 2% running cross slope and a 5% running slope. A lot of these driveways that we were crossing over were not going to be at the correct slope. And so, again, if you go to the civil engineering set of plans, you can see where a lot of these driveways have to be replaced, and we're only replacing them to the point within the right-of-way that gets us to the correct grade, where a car can still get up, go over the multi-use pathway and enter the road without having an extreme grade change. And so that's kind of easier to see when you look at civil engineering plans, but once the pathway is done, you'll see a lot of kind of stuff like this where we had to do a new driveway, in between the road and the pathway at the appropriate grade, because right now it might just be gravel or a material that's not suitable. And so kind of moving on down further, you can see at each intersection we have kind of our swing and our xeriscape garden. You can see where the multi-use pathway swings there, and that's, we met with that homeowner there, and they had a feature in the right of way that they were, that they asked us to avoid. And so there's a lot of examples like that, where we swing the pathway to avoid something that was identified as a feature that we wanted to preserve.
Is that where we at now?
That is going to be Hampton, right there, I believe.
Is that what it goes to?
Yeah, it's in that one.
I believe that's going to be Hampton. So that's the bar to the east.
So we passed we already went over the bar, okay.
Yeah, so the bar is a little bit further back. That's going to be the bar street, a little bit further to the east.
Right,
there.
I see.
Yeah. So there's Hampton. So again, staying on the inside of the loop. And then we're going to come around to the low end of Shoreline, where there's currently a lot of swales that are conveyed with old stormwater pipes that go underneath the driveway that really serves no purpose. And so as we're replacing those driveways, we're going to be pulling that pipe out and really cleaning up that area, making it look consistent. And this would only be within the right of way, not really on private property. But that's one of the things we identified. And so we're going to be coming up here to the high end and Keats Point, where we'll go around the loop. This is going to be McLean there. So it's kind of the same thing. Every one of these intersections is going to be consistent with the sideways swing, the enhanced curving, the new striping, the xeriscape gardens. And so talk a little bit about the bike lanes. I briefly hit on it, but we did these renderings. And so in 30 days, when we do have our prices back, we wanted to talk about the challenges with bike lanes and what you gain from it and what you lose from it. And so these 4 pictures here is going to be the multi-use pathway with the bike lane. So this is here in front of the Methodist Church, and this shows where the multi-use pathway is kind of pulled away from the road. And so you have your new bike lane and you have your multi-use pathway offset. This is an example of where your multi-use pathway is offset 5 feet from the road, which is standard along the pathway in a lot of locations. And so if you do your bike lane, it's essentially going to give you 15 feet of additional shoulder off the edge of the road. And so that has benefits of separating your traffic, separating your bikers from your medium speed vehicles from your pedestrians. And so it's as many separations as you can get. So obviously this is the safest route, but for our community, we really feel that this over here, it provides your green space, provides your separations, but your road bikers would still use the road here. So we would have additional signage here, enhanced signage along the route, and essentially the very small percentage of road bikers that would not want to use our pathway would still legally be allowed to use the road, and we would have the additional signage to allow for that. And so what this gets you is it gets you more green space. It gets you, it overcomes the challenges of mail delivery and trash delivery, which is some of the challenges we saw over here. When you have trash day, you know, where are you putting your trash can? Where is your mailman going to be driving along the route to deliver mail if we're putting mailboxes back here? And so these are all challenges that can be overcome. Lots of communities have overcome them. But just kind of wanted to point out some of the challenges to you for when we do review this in 30 days and have, you know, you're going to have the opportunity to either select bike lanes or not select bike lanes. So we kind of wanted to show you what those two options look like.
The bottom one on the right, just out of curiosity, it's got a bike lane, a green space, and then the multi-use. Is that like 20 feet?
This is going to be a share the road bike lane. Yeah, so this is with your bike lane, and so you have your road, your 4-foot bike lane, and then your 10-foot wide multi-use path lane. This is going to be your same iteration without the bike lane. So you just have your road for shared use and then your 10-foot wide multi-use path lane.
On our roads, like, is there enough, like I noticed in some of the streets in Pensacola now, they have part of the road does have a designated bike area. It's very clear where that is. Are our roads capable of doing that if we're not going to have a separate?
Our roads are at 12 feet, and so it's limited on actually establishing, you know, several feet off. But that's what we're talking about doing, is doing a robust signage campaign around the loop that indicates that it's a share the road use. And so we've seen out there, you know, road bikers are able to utilize it. I have stopped a couple of road bikers along this loop contemplating these two choices myself, and asked them, hey, if, you know, if we did this choice or this choice, where would you ride your bike? And the majority of the time I've gotten the answer that road bikers would prefer using the multi-use pathway off the road. Now you're going to get a small percentage of folks that no matter what you build, they're going to want to be out on the road. But we have made this multi-use pathway as attractive as possible for roads, skateboarders, so on and so forth. And one of the changes we made is, if you look at Pensacola Beach's multi-use pathway, this is a good example here, you'll see that the driveway will go all the way through the pathway. And so you have a joint, a double joint in every driveway that a skateboarder or rollerblader would find that undesirable. And that's why, you know, they're wanting to go to something smooth. A road biker with a really small tire, they're trying to hit as few of those joints as possible. And I don't know if y'all understand what I'm saying with the joint, if the driveway goes through. And so what we did with this design, A, for that purpose, and B, for constructability, so the paving machine doesn't have to pull the street up, lower the street, you get kind of those transitions that can create unfavorable asphalt pouring. They can just continue their asphalt with this design recommendation all the way through. And so the driveway is going to stop at the multi-use pathway and start on the backside of the multi-use pathway. So you'll have a continuous pathway along the entire loop, where the only joints would be at your intersections, that would be a joint from asphalt to asphalt, which can be very smooth. And so we think with that particular design change, that it's going to make it more attractive to people that are looking, you know, to utilize this pathway with the minimal impact of joints, and again, having people with just small tires. And so that's one of the changes that we made. So I think we're on Fairpoint now, is that right? Yes. And so coming around the loop, it essentially stays on the inside of the loop. Where are we at? Oh yeah, okay. So it stays on the inside of the loop all the way down to the Methodist Church. And then we cross the road again at the Methodist Church, that existing crosswalk there, and then it continues down to CVS. And so what this does is it gets the entire city access either through a crosswalk to enter the multi-use pathway, or from entering the interior neighborhoods into the multi-use pathway, access to the civic uses, the community center, the library, city hall, the schools, and then the other side of the city to the commercial uses. It discharges them into the CVS parking lots. And then phase 2, which is something we've been working on with a different consultant, is the multimodal overpasses, which we've been planning these two projects together where it can all sit together very nicely. And this multi-use pathway can get somebody access from any point on the west side of the city to all the commercial uses on the east side of the city. which, achieves all the goals of our master plan.
Just a refresher on the overpasses, that was at the invitation of FDOT, who said, yes, we would like to work with you on a design concept. And so that funding would again be in coordination with FDOT. That's very long-term, long-range planning is what we're talking about there.
Correct.
Any idea where they would place them?
Well, I actually looked at a sneak peek today, so we're hoping to bring something to you soon.
In a couple of few weeks, we'll have some good progress on that.
Been doing a lot of
for you.
studies.
Is that, so go back, Leslie, is that where, that's where it crosses, where's that?
That is the existing crosswalk at the Methodist Church.
So the multi-use pathway would cross there.
That's where the multi-use pathway crosses, correct. It'll cross at Chesapeake and right here is the two places that it crosses the road. And so we crossed the road here, because we wanted to discharge into the CVS parking lot. And so we were gonna have to cross the road somewhere to get to that commercial use over there. And then the Hoffman intersection has a lot of challenges that we're looking to straighten up at another project. But when we look on taking it further east and crossing somewhere around the Hoffman intersection, there was a lot of challenges. And so for now, we crossed the road there. And what this does is it preserves the parking for the Methodist Church, which was a very big concern amongst their congregation. Yeah.
Especially since they spent all that money doing what they do.
Yeah, and so the city contributed to that streetscape grant there as well, and so it just kind of falls into the planning. Now, phase two, we're talking about the overpasses. It might require that we come up with some sort of arrangement there with that parking, but we've already been thinking about solutions for that. And that's essentially where it ends. It discharges you directly there into the CVS parking lot. If you zoom out, and so the other aspect of this project is the Wetlands Trail Boardwalk, which we have a design for. And so council had initially said that y'all weren't sure that you wanted to fund the construction of the Wetlands Trail Boardwalk. And based on our preliminary budget estimates, we think that the multi-use pathway is potentially going to come in under budget. There's a lot of that kind of bids are coming in low right now, but for some reason marine construction is coming in high right now. And so we anticipate that the bid for the multi-use pathway might, the Wetlands Trail Boardwalk might be a little higher than what we originally had budgeted. So if you scroll on Shoreline Park.
Again, just a reminder that the council, when we talked about you reviewing a funding plan last July, you took out the construction dollars for the boardwalk because we proposed the money that we could, find that was not encumbered was general fund dollars. And the council said you did not want general fund dollars to go towards this project. And so there are no construction dollars for the boardwalk at this time. We'd like to get an idea of cost, but more importantly, we'll have to go after grants in order to make that component of the project happen.
Yeah, we have a shovel-ready design for the Wetlands Trail Boardwalk, so that does make it more attractive for grants, and it's something that we think benefits the cities, and we're going to continue to pursue, and maybe the price will come in lower, and we can consider.
And there are grants available for boardwalk projects. Multi-use pathway, obviously I shared with you that has been extremely difficult and impossible, but with the boardwalk, we are more optimistic. So we continue to work that.
So the Wetlands Trail Boardwalk, we had Wetland Science go out there and do a survey. They identified points of interest. Sam Marshall Architects gave the architectural plans for the uncovered gazebo, which is located right there at the Y. But essentially it provides beach access and shoreline park access to the Williamsburg neighborhood, and also extends the trails that we've been working on for several years through there to the Wetlands Trail. Kind of creates that educational campaign, and what I always envision as a draw to the whole pathway itself. And so this section of the project would be what would draw an outsider, a non-resident, and that would be a destination, something very unique that would also provide benefit to the residents as well. And so the last part of this project, that there's nothing really to show you, but it's essentially the milling and paving of Shoreline Drive. And so at first we had thought that we were going to have to do a full depth, what's called full depth reclamation. We thought that the sub base of that road was failing, but through the geotechnical that we did at the survey phase of the project, we determined that the sub base is actually adequate, and we're just having failing of the top level. And so there's Again, that's gonna greatly reduce the cost, and we're still gonna be able to get a really good product out of that. So we have that broken in two parts. The base bid being from Peaks Point to South Sunset, and then the bid alternative being from South Sunset to 98, and that would be fun to do the LOST. And again, we'll present what's available at fund for you, but it would be repaving all Shortland Drive as part of this.
Right, but on something like that where we bid it out, would we ever piggyback? I guess I'm thinking, like how we're doing with the county, it's saving so much money. Is that possible when you do a project like this?
We certainly could, yeah, I mean, if the bid comes back for that, if that bid all comes back very high, we certainly can deny that section of the bid and go to the same methodology we use, go to Santa Rosa County and add up. We do think that there's, and the reason we added these two projects together is for the constructability. You're gonna be mobilized out there. There's grading changes for both the road and the multi-use pathway that would need to happen together. And then once you have your asphalt machinery out there, we haven't really gotten into phasing yet, but ideally it could all be phased in a way that you're not having to remobilize over and over again. And then you can capture those savings on the economy of scale for the amount of asphalt you're getting. So yes, to answer your question. And so yeah, we're really excited about this. Patrick and myself are both city residents, and we've been working on this hard for a year and talked to many stakeholders, and we really feel good about this project. It is a transformational project. There's going to be some growing pains in the construction of it, as any project, but once this thing's done, I can confidently say it's going to be transformational for the city and very beneficial, and something that residents, once the thoughts of building it is out of their mind and it's built, it's going to be something that's heavily used and something that draws residents to the city. Are there any questions?
I have a couple.
Sure.
So, long-term maintenance on something like this, I assume because of the weight level, the breakdown's not as near as bad as it is the roads as far as every 15 years or 10 years of recovery, Is the amount of asphalt, is it half of what you have to use on a normal road as far as thickness? What is the normal thickness on a path like this compared to a road?
It's the sub-base that's going to be thinner, and so the thickness of the asphalt, and I might get Patrick to weigh in here, he can maybe speak better on that, but the thickness of the asphalt is still around the same at around 1.5 inches, but it's your sub-base that's going to be thinner. And long-term maintenance, in 30 days, we will have some prices for you for what the perceived annual maintenance cost of this is. Something we're already working on to try, if we're going to build this, I want to lay out what it's going to take to maintain it annually, but we assume that it would be very similar to a road. You would need, it would need to be repaved every 20 years, every 15 years, and then you would have your hot spots where you get heavy use, a car might be driving over, you might get crumbling, and so there's going to be spots that you're going to have to fix along the way, but that's something we can do internally. That our staff is doing patches along the roads in a lot of different places, and so I think that's something we can continuously do, and then as the 15 years life cycle of the pathway expires, it would have to be redone.
So part of your budget that you'll lay out for us as far as maintaining it will include the landscaping, the lighting, all that too?
Correct. The lighting will have, we're exploring two different options with the lighting. And so this price that we're presenting to y'all in 30 days will not include lighting. It will kind of be a separate thing. And so initially Gulf Power had told us that they were not going to be able to provide the product that we wanted. And they just called me 2 weeks ago and said that they are going to be able to provide it now. So there's been a lot of growing pains with them, with Florida Power and Light, and what they're able to offer and what they're not able to offer. But we'll have two options for you because I've already started working with McKim & Creed and a private company to give you a purchase option, and then there'll also be a leasing option. So with the lighting, I don't see a lot of long-term maintenance other than damage for wrecks and stuff like that, as they're being, because we're going to be using LED and
There's always maintenance.
correct.
Is it going to be consistent with what we put out on the streetscape project? Or?
Yes, it is the same light, the Arlene style pole, and then we also envision using bollards underneath the oak canopies. And so that's demonstrated out here. A little 4-foot tall black bollard, then you see back here the Arlene style acorn lights. And so trying to get that that average foot candle along the roof. We'll further analyze, do a photometric study, figure out what our spacing needs to be, so on and so forth. The preliminary budget for lights is around $700,000 to add lights to the whole loop. And again, in 30 days, I will have you some maintenance budget as well for what the maintenance is.
That's what it's always on that thing.
So Craig, on that, like the lease lights, I think I remember that over on Daniel, by leasing them, wasn't then maintenance taken care of by?
Yes.
So that's why it's called.
Yeah, the components have different life cycles, so the contract, takes the metal 20 years and the electronics 15 years. But yes, the brakes you call Gulf Power. It's a cost that we're paying monthly. And so I think if you look at it, it's probably equal cost, but it's the having, the negatives of doing our purchase option is getting access to that pole when a car inevitably runs into it. And so the solution to that is you have to have a laydown yard. And so we would purchase, 5 extra bollards and 5 extra lights, and we would have them stored somewhere at City Hall. And as a car hit it, we could go to our storage supply, which is what Gulf Power does. You pay them to do that for you using the lease option. And so we will have those options for you as well in 30 days, either to take that on as part of this construction or to phase it in.
And do you see, I see the nice beautiful grass there. Do you see us doing irrigation along this too? Or are you seeing just?
This is existing, they beefed it up a little bit with technology, but all,
Is that AstroTurf?
all the spaces that will be, disturbed will be replaced with solid Bahia stock. No irrigation, but it will be Bahia stock. So very similar to what is in the National Seashore in the center median. And so it's a drought tolerant, it's actually called Pensacola Bahia. So it's drought tolerant local grass that has been proven to do well here. Will it be this green? Maybe in the rain.
Yeah.
But all, the gardens, and so it's hard to tell kind of what's going on, but you have this enhanced crosswalk here and then landscaping on either side of the gardens. And so that will all be the drought tolerant species. Once it's established, we envision very little maintenance. And so it'd be.
Do you have some examples of what some of these drought tolerant species would be?
I do. I can send you the whole schedule. Yes.
But it's similar to what is over in front of the arbors.
It has a palette of probably 20 or 30 different species. A lot of the species are very similar to what we've seen in the Mixed Nut Project and what we've seen locally, being juniper and agapantha, holly, stuff like that. And so the difference would be it still needs to be established. And so what we're proposing to the contractor is a water truck. And so I reached out to a couple of nurseries and vetted this. So first of all, the palette was chosen by a landscape architect in conjunction with the local extension service. And then I took that first list and I reached out to my local contacts, nurseries, landscapers I've worked with in the past, and read the entire list of them and said, are these plants available? Have you had success with these plants? And immediately crossed like 10 plants off the list. And so we've iterated the palette selection for the plants as well. And we feel confident that what we're proposing will be good once it is established.
The little lights on the trail, is that just,
This year,
the lights, poles, what is those little poles?
that's a bollard. And so that's what it's a 4-foot high light, essentially. And what that does, the purpose that we've chosen, so it won't necessarily be a bollard in all these locations because this is just representative. And so in some places, it's going to be this Arlene style pole. But everywhere we have an oak canopy or a direct line of sight to a house, we're trying to prevent light pollution, light pollution. And so really, we want to light the path and the path only. We don't want to light people's private property or create issues with the lighting. And so that's why we've added the bollard option, which can really focus our light down onto the path.
And as Craig said, Gulf Power is going to put together the lighting plan for us. We'll bring that to you. It's a totally different, phase. There's a lot of decisions, left to make, but the lighting plan, you'll tackle entirely separate. It might be something that you just implement. Yeah.
And so we have been working with Gulf Power for 8 months, or 7 months on this. We had a non-binding estimate. I have walked the site several times with their lighting consultant. We were pretty much ready to go. She's going to give me the binding estimate, and their executive said we're no longer going to offer those options. And they were essentially going to pull the contract. And I went to a private company and told them, hey, we're going to a private company. We really want your business, but obviously you're not going to provide the product we want. And she called me 3 days later and said they changed their mind. So they are currently looking.
Okay.
They really wanted to partner with us and provide that for us. And so she told me that they'll provide any light we want.
Yeah. So Craig, on the specifications themselves, really divvy this up where pieces of the puzzle can be selected on an a la carte basis.
Correct. The multi-use pathway is the base bits. I haven't broken the multi-use pathway up, but bike lanes, the zero skate gardens, the lights, the enhanced crosswalks, the additional milling and paving will all be broken in separate prices to allow you to pick and choose and prioritize to meet our budget.
On the driveways, how long is it going to take where people can get in and out of their drives?
People will have access to their homes at all times, and so we'll do temporary drives as needed.
I just remember seeing that those poor folks over there by the roundabout. They had trouble getting in and out for a long time.
The church.
Yes,
No, the new roundabout over there.
yeah, there's the one driveway there.
Right, the corner.
There was,
Daniel Drive and Kenilworth.
We're not.
that is an outlier.
Yeah,
That was
we're-
a discussion with the property owner that went
Okay.
back and forth. So that is not this.
Okay.
Yeah, so I saw the bid documents. It includes temporary driveways. So if we are in there disturbing the driveway for a long period of time, we'll put in buildings, temporary driveway. Everybody will have access to their homes. And then we'll come in and, pour these driveways. It won't be all at once. They'll just do several at a time.
Wow, that's gonna be a mess.
It is. I look at Pensacola Beach, and so I grew up out there in Pensacola Beach. Via Galena was a 2-lane road. If you drove down that 2-lane road 20 years ago, and somebody said this is going to be a 4-lane road, and every single driveway is going to be redone, we're going to do stormwater in the center median, people would look at you silly. So it was transformational for Pensacola Beach. It's become part of what it is out there now. Nobody knows it's different. And so, yes, it is transformational. There's going to be some impacts, some temporary impacts to the right of way, but once it's done, we're going to have a much better product, much better, more efficient, safer product than we have today.
All right, any other questions, comments?
You might have to wear a mask during that time.
Full face mask.
Did you say
For
you
different
might?
reasons. Right.
Okay, so Leslie, do we have any public comments? or
I don't
questions?
have any comments or anything. I know Patrick Yandley's on the line. Did you have anything, Patrick, that you wanted to say?
Thanks for doing that. Good job. I'm good.
Thank you, Patrick.
Smart man.
All right, so, do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. What about council discussion?
So we're just voting to put it out for bid.
That's
See what the
right.
price is and all that.
A lot has been done, a lot is still left to do.
Okay. I'm good.
All right, so all in favor of authorizing staff to advertise an invitation to bid for the multi-use pathway, wetland trail boardwalk, and shoreline drive road rehabilitation project? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign.
So,
All right,
are we doing the wetland boardwalk pricing too? I thought we were not doing.
We're going to get a bid for it. We have a
Okay.
completed design, but, if the bid comes in low, y'all might reconsider and say, hey, that's something we want to do. We anticipate that bid coming in high and us pursuing grants, but we want to see.
Okay.
At least we know a dollar figure that we were going to.
At least that'll also help us with the grants to say, what does the thing actually cost to build?
Okay. All right, Okay, on item B, we've got the Northwest Speed purchase approval. Is that Sam or Craig?
That's me.
Okay,
Uh,
Craig.
We can make it very quick. The council started their neighborhood enhancement program several years ago. The Northcliffe Soundview Trail was first. We've all seen the successes with the Soundview Trail project we implemented down there. I can say I've received 0 speeding complaints since we installed those down there. And so the Northcliffe neighborhood meeting, we chose Northcliffe based to their growth pressures with the Holiday Inn Express going in there. Also, as a continuance of the block meeting we held when we kicked off the idea of the neighborhood meeting. So we gathered a lot of input during that block meeting. We put together a preliminary plan. We implemented a couple of the projects that came out of that block meeting, and that was the roundabout and neighborhood entrance signs. So both of those are done. Both of those were installed for traffic mitigation. We held the kickoff meeting at the community center where we had really good input, presented some draft ideas to the neighborhood, and overwhelmingly speed and traffic control within the neighborhood was voted as the highest priority. And so we took that information, we consulted with HSA. They provided the Northcliffe Speed Hump recommendation study where they gave us a device recommendation and location recommendation. I sent that recommendation to the neighborhood and received only positive feedback, and they are very eager to get this done. What I've been telling them from the very beginning is the goal is to have this project implemented by summer, so we are on track. If council votes tonight to implement that project. We've identified some cost savings. We already have some speed humps in that neighborhood that are prefabricated speed humps, so it's not like the Soundview Trail ones where it's an asphalt hump that we poured down, and so this is a prefabricated composite material that gets bolted into the ground. We've had success with that. It's called a speed hump. It allows pedestrians, bikes, fire trucks to pass through unobstructed while also controlling speed. There's an example of that. And so we determined that staff could install these in-house, and so I solicited 3 bids for materials only, and the low bid was from Traffic Logics. I believe it was $8,000. I think we can do the remaining of the signage and striping for under $5,000 in-house. And so we had $25,000 in the budget for neighborhood enhancements this year. And so we imagine being able to come in under budget, which will allow me to go back to the Northcliffe neighborhood and say, hey, we have a little bit of money left over. We can do something else, or we can roll it into the next neighborhood's projects or another priority for the council. And so the recommendation is to purchase the devices and allow staff to install in-house.
Any public comment? All right, do we have a motion
Move to approve.
and a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any council discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Passes 5-1. Next, we'll go to item C, which is the 2020 Group B resurfacing. Samantha?
Thank you, City Council. As the CRA, you have already reviewed the map and approved a portion of the Group B resurfacing project. That is the CRA's contribution. This is the city's contribution. It will be a piggyback with the county contract, which will help realize the cost savings. This will be awarded to Panhandle Grading and Paving, a total cost of $102,553.64. And you see on page 64, the list of roads being Deer Point and a portion of Shoreline Place and Fairpoint Place. Happy to answer your questions.
All right, any questions? Do we have any public comments? All right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and any discussion from the council?
I have a question, maybe. A minute ago, we've been always getting bid by the foot, basically. And then you threw in this ton thing. Where did that come from?
That is in the contract that Panhandle Paving and Grading has with the county. And so
So that each truck gets weighed before it comes out of the thing?
they know the weight of the asphalt. Correct. I don't know if the truck is weighed, but they know that the weight capacity of the truck and then fill the asphalt. So if you look in the CRA, The contract with Panhandle Paving and Grading gives some itemized prices. It's in the CRA agenda. It's in the actual contract and right here on page 27.
And have we gone over on any of our other bids with them, like when we did, like Dolphin Street and all that? Did we have any?
Those were bid as a fixed rate project, and so that was bid as a fixed rate, and if, it's at the contractor's and city's risk. And so if they have to use more or less, the way that this particular contract is written, it's a very, very low rate, but they want to make sure that they're not getting themselves in trouble if it's more than they thought. And so, yeah, 27 has your breakdown per square yard per building. So, Thomas is the one that's been negotiating that contract.
Okay, of course I've heard that before, that's the reason I was curious. I know it's a great rate, I'm just wondering, is this?
Everything your scale.
Yeah.
I was
Not that I would think.
Clifton Wells is the one that went around with the Panhandling Paving and Grading Manager. He's the one that brought that to our attention, that is the unique part of this contract, that if they use more, we have to pay for more. And he said due to that they estimated on the high end for each one of these roads, so he does not anticipate having to utilize that portion of the contract.
All right, just curious, I have not seen that before, so.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say
I think we
aye.
already voted.
We have a motion in a second.
Oh, I thought we voted, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Aye. Hearing none, then that is passes 5-0. All right, next we are down to the gas main relocation for Bear Drive stormwater work. Samantha.
Yes, thank you. Mayor and Council, this is for the relocation and replacement of a steel gas main that we anticipated and which is in conflict with the new stormwater improvements. Originally, we had planned to do this in-house. However, our work orders for natural gas have just been significantly behind, and we have been making progress with new management and new trained service workers, and so we really don't want to lose that momentum because our customers have been very patient with us as it is. And so we are now requesting a change order for the contractor who's on site to be able to do this work. When we look at the potential for new customers and those work orders that are outstanding versus the cost, we found it just was the right business decision to make. The total cost of the change order is $120,514.10. And our recommendation is for approval that it be approved as a change order to Roads Inc. I can answer any questions.
Where's the extra 120,000?
Natural gas.
Wow.
Your only enterprise that has reserves.
They can do it. All right, Leslie, any comments or questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
A second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any council discussion, questions, comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, passes 5-0. All right, now we are down to the SSRUS lift station pump replacement. Samantha.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, this is a budgeted repair and replacement project. This is for the purchase of 2 new pumps at each of the listed stations on page 111. As you well know, the city's evaluated its 87 lift stations. We've continued to have issues over the last 2 years increasingly, and for that reason, you budgeted the lift station pump replacements for this budget, and then there's also going to be more that you're going to see for your fiscal year 2021. You have the bids in front of you. Council approved a total of $400,000. This list here presently represents $174,000 because of emergency repairs. It significantly ate into that $400,000 that we were hoping to expend on pump replacements. So we request that the council authorize the purchase of the pumps to Gondolier Island, Palm Street, Ganges, Madura, Madura 5, South Forest, Berkeley Forest, West Vic, Lighthouse Point, Holly Isle 3, for $164,210 from AAG Electric Motors and Pumps. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. No public comments or questions? All right, council, do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any council discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Item F is the lift station pump replacement for Florida Avenue.
Thank you again. This is a budget expense. It's for the purchase of 2 new pumps for the Florida Avenue lift station. This would be awarded to, again, AAG Electric Motors and Pumps. Neglected to say these all come with a 5-year non-prorated warranty. And again, I can answer any questions. Total amount is $19,435.
All right, we have no public comment. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any council questions or comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Next on our list is the Vector truck repairs.
Move for approval.
That was quick. Do we have any comments?
We need that.
Okay, all right, we have a motion for approval, and we have a second. Any discussion?
No.
All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Next on our list is the Parkway Animal Parkway easement agreement. And Samantha?
I'm going to ask our city attorney if she would like to second.
Okay.
Yes, I'll try to be brief here, and let me also say that we have Dr. Rennie, who is the current owner of Parkway Animal Hospital, and Dr. Deaver, who is a prospective purchaser of the animal hospital and the property, are both standing by. We have their phone numbers and also phone numbers of their attorneys. If you have any questions for them, they are listening in and standing ready to answer any questions. This easement agreement really just formalizes an easement agreement that has just informally been in place for many, many years. I think that I'm told that no one can really remember when the parking spaces that currently serve the animal hospital were not there. And so with the sale of the property, however, in order to satisfy title requirements. And also, it's just a good idea for both sides to have our obligations and the rights to put down a formal easement agreement. We were asked if we would enter into one, and I've worked with the attorneys on the other side. Nothing controversial here, but they're adversarial. But in any event, all the attorneys for the parties have worked together to come up with this easement agreement, which again just formalizes the agreement and the use that's been in place for many years. This is, as you know, on an unnamed street that runs off of 98 and back to the city's water tank. One of the reasons that another issue we ran into was that this property for the right-of-way, for the public right-of-way, was actually deeded to the county by the past owners in 1958, but there was never any recorded instrument actually then transferring that ownership to the city upon the city's incorporation in 1961, and that happens. If some would say that it's just happens as an operation of law that once the city's incorporated, all of the public right-of-ways within the boundaries become the property of the city, and the city did ultimately take over the maintenance of that. And so we are looking to a statute that in these kind of situations allows for if you record a certified map stating that the local government who currently really does own and maintain it has done so for at least going back 7 years, and the city's done it and maintained that road for many, many years. So we're clearly within that 7-year time frame. But if you follow that certified map, then then that will vest title formally in the city. And so we're also doing that as well to just absolutely definitively vest the title in the city to that roadway and then to grant the easement. So in the easement agreement, it's a pretty simple agreement, and it's the parking spaces don't in any way obstruct the roadway and its use. So we would recommend approval.
Any public comments or questions?
Any?
All right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second? Second? Okay, we have a motion to second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign, and it passes 5-0. All right, down to item I, which is the summer day camp program. Samantha, do you want to talk to us about that?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You have a memo in front of you from the Director of Parks and Recreation. We went ahead and unfortunately made the sad decision to cancel the first week of our summer camp program, which runs until July 8th, which is this Wednesday, in order for us to just ascertain if this was a one-time really bad week when we were first experiencing the community spread. But obviously since then, what we know is that those who are most likely to spread the COVID are our younger people, and they can often be asymptomatic. That has caused just some concerns, making sure that we are providing an environment where children would be able to wear masks at all times. And unfortunately, we cannot do that with the summer camp. You're having small children, they're going to be running around, but also the availability of the rec assistant. Ron could not assure that he would have adequate staffing. And so he is asking that staff make formal approval to cancel the summer camp for this year.
All right. Any questions or comments?
No, ma'am, I'll have a seat.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, do we have any discussion items for tonight? New business? Public forum? All right, let's move on to council comments. Tom, let's start with yours. None. All right, Todd?
None.
JD?
I'm just curious, did you ever find out what's going on with the SunTrust Bank? Did you ever hear anything what's going on with that property?
Do we know who's looking at this interest rate? We still don't know.
And I thought I heard too also that Ace Cannon sold his business. Have y'all heard that?
It's been sold.
And he's moving? Is he moving?
No, he sold it, and it's continuing on under his Canon home loan.
Oh, it is? Okay. I thought somebody, I heard.
One of his employees sold it.
I thought I heard he was moving, so.
Wait. Say it again, who are we talking about? Cannon Automotive?
Yeah.
We sold property?
No, not the property, the business.
Oh, yeah. Jeff.
Jeff, well, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, Jeff, yeah. Okay, I was just curious. I heard that, if you may also heard that. That's all I had.
Randy?
I just want to say that I'm really proud to serve on the council with everyone here. It's really nice that we have mutual respect for one another's opinions on views that could be taken controversially, I just think that's really awesome that we're able to talk it out. May not always agree, but we have mutual respect for one another. And I'm really proud that we're able to serve with that.
That's true.
Thank you.
Yeah, we second that. Thank you. Last thing that I had was just good luck to Samantha tomorrow at the Restore meeting and keep the charge going for us. And thank you for
Bring it
all
home.
you've done up to this point. Tomorrow's going to be the big day. And also just thank all of you and the citizens and businesses in Gulf Breeze for staying safe during this time. End of meeting.
All right.